everyone. It's Dr. Shiva Adure. It's around midnight here in Italy, a little bit after midnight. And I want to take a little bit of time to really get a little more deeper into having this conversation with anyone about the fact that we're headed for a very, very important 2024 in the United States, and for that matter in the world. And it's a wonderful opportunity for everyone, I believe, to really reflect and learn, and so people don't get fooled again. The reality is very simple. If you want to live long and prosper, you should vote for me, Shiva, for president in 2024. If you want to die younger and sooner, and you want your children to die younger and sooner, you should vote for one of the other WWE theatrical nonsense of either Boooby, as I call Robert F. Kennedy Jr., or Donnie, Trump. Because what the establishment is teeing up, as they do every 4 years in a recurrent, unfortunate process, is a theatrical political theater where they come up with one, wrestler versus another wrestler. No different than when I was a kid growing up. We used to watch WWF. Now it's called WWE. And it's all fake. These people are actors. And if you decide that you really care about yourself, particularly your children and your family, and you want to live long and prosper, you will vote Shiva for president. And I say this because regardless of whether you decide to vote for me or not, our movement for truth, freedom, and health is going to do what it has always done. And I want to share that history because it's important people understand that the work I did, have done for most of my life, as it really hit the pavement in 2020, saved millions and millions of people's lives. It was my work and our movement, which was the first to oppose the lockdowns and really give a solution, not just oppose, but give a solution to support the immunity of people. It was our movement that exposed the fact that governments of the world have an unholy alliance with big tech. In our historic lawsuit, where I represented myself because no lawyer would have taken it on in 2020 and 2021, it was my work, my hard work, that exposed the fact that government and big tech are one. And unfortunately, people who I refer to as Fucker Carlson, aka Tucker Carlson, or any of these guys that you see in the media or grifters, they all stayed silent. Nearly 300, 400 million people knew about our work, but all of these people, all the conservative grifters, obviously the left-wing media doesn't care about, they love censorship, but the conservative grifters are even worse because they posture as if they care about the American people, but they're part of it. Anything they do is for views and clicks to sell something. But again, it was my work, my hard work, and our movement's work in 2020, which exposed the government censorship infrastructure in a historic lawsuit. We were winning many cases. A judge gave us a lawyer, and the lawyer wanted me to simply go back on Twitter and not drop all the charges against the government. I refused. The judge wanted to sanction me with criminal prosecution because I refused. And he simply wanted me on Twitter. And we just walked away because I didn't want to just go back on Twitter and drop all the other claims. We are now moving that case forward against ICE and DHS. So that's what we're doing. I didn't see Robert Kennedy helping us there. I didn't see Donald Trump helping us there. I didn't see Joe Biden. I didn't see any of these other people, Tucker Carlson, Elon Musk, nowhere. We did it on our own with the support of hundreds of millions of people globally, bottoms up. So I want to talk about this because I think it's very, very important that everyone realize that the consolidation of Hollywood, WWE wrestling, political theater has all come to one. And the great American people are being manipulated, this time, big time manipulation, because the establishment knows they can't use the people or the obvious puppets. So they've created a class of people I call the not so obvious establishment, or the not so obvious puppets. And these puppets all talk a good game. Talk. But when you really look at what they do, it's completely the opposite. And they are banking on the fact that you have a very short memory and that you are so dumb that you'll keep voting for one fool on the left or another fool on the right. But again, as I say again, if you want to vote for the left or the right, you will die sooner and so will your children. If you want to vote for me, you're going to live longer and prosper. And my history and my actions speak to that. So if we can bring up this graph pretty much says it all. If you look at this graph that my producer John is going to bring up here, this graph provides a very, very stark reality of what the policies of both left and right, Democrat and Republican, have brought the American public. And in this graph, what you will see is, John, if you can make the graph bigger, what you'll see in this graph is something quite profound. John, it's cycling for me. I assume it's up. So I'm going to assume it's up. But if you look at this graph, what you'll see in this graph is something quite profound. And I don't want you to just get lost in the massive drop that you see later. I want you to focus on the drop I want you to focus on on starting in 1980 as you see in this graph. So what is this graph? Well, it's a profound graph because it is a line chart that goes from 1980 to the present, close to the present, on the x-axis. On the y-axis is the life expectancy rates. And every gray line, including the red line, represents the life expectancy charted over time of people in the industrialized nations like Germany, Japan, the United States, France, etc. The hard, dark gray line, if John can point to that, that line represents the average of all those countries. And if you go to 1980, you'll see a very sharp increase that was occurring in parallel to that line. And suddenly around 1984, in that period, the red line of the United States life expectancy diverges from the industrialized nations average. Okay? And you see that right there as John's pointing it out there. So you can see it completely diverges. And that divergence shows that the life expectancy of the people of the United States was headed in a completely different direction than the rest of the world. That's starting in the 1980s. And as I've shared before, as a MIT trained systems biologist who's renowned for my work on the immune system and the work I do every day, publish a lot of papers on the immune system inflammation. It is the immune system that is the foundation of the human body. And what you're seeing here is that the year over year, the immune system of the American people has been destroyed. So when in 2019, 2014, you can see the massive decline that starts taking place. So when something like a shock to the system comes, like a quote unquote pandemic, that has a massive effect on people whose immune systems are shocked, okay? And that's what you see. But the bottom line is, as we just overlay these lines, this is not something that occurred because of the coronavirus pandemic. This is something that's been going on since 1980. And that's probably the most important thing to understand. The other thing I think people should understand is that right now on Twitter, you can see the massive amount of shadow banning. It's close to only about 45 viewers on Twitter or on Facebook. As many of you know, I'm used to having hundreds of thousands of viewers. So there's been this massive curtailment of speech where Elon Musk thinks he's very clever. He puts people like me back on, but he puts you in a digital cage. And we'll talk more about that. But the bottom line is what you see, this complete wackadoodle way that the United States populace is growing. Again, I repeat, John, if you can come back to full video. I think the real issue is if you are in America and you want to live long and prosper, you should vote for me. If you want to die young and suffer, then you should vote for Boooby, that's what his name really is, and you'll understand why, Boooby Kennedy, RFK Jr., or Donnie, Donald Trump, because both of these people are deadly. They're part of a long history of Republicans and Democrats, as that chart shows, going back to 1980, who've been involved in actually policies that have been killing the working people of the United States. Now, that's what I wanted to share with you. Now, if you want to continue, now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go into a detailed analysis of both Robert Kennedy and Donald Trump, well, they're both frauds, both imposters, on every policy that you can think about, where they say one thing and they do another. So if you'd like to continue listening to this, given the level of shadow banning and the censorship that occurs to me, I invite you to go to our platform at vashiva.com, Victory Alpha Shiva, vashiva.com, or the link in the description or the post. And if you click on that, we'll be able to continue having this conversation without any censorship. So I invite you to go there, and I'm going to go over there. I'll do a count of from 10 to 0, and you can join me there. So please join me on our platform by clicking on the link or going to vashiva, shiva.com. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2,